In the 1950s, he became popular in both British radio and film. His talents were then brought to Hollywood, and by the mid-60s, he'd become one of the most popular comedic character actors of all time. He's the one and only Peter Sellers. Peter was born Richard Henry Sellers on September 8, 1925, in Southsea, England. After working as a child member of his parents' comedy act, he graduated to radio on the BBC. Eventually, he landed some small roles in British short subject films, and by 1951, he had made his feature film debut. He landed his most memorable role in the early 50s, playing a not-so-bright crook in The Lady Killers, released in 1955.
Alec Guinness triumphantly outdoes his laughter-loaded leadership of the Lavender Hill Mob as he involves his gruesome gang of lady killers in the season's most uproarious escapade.
In 1957, Peter played a film-going fanatic in a British comedy homage to cinema, The Smallest Show on Earth.
Mr. Quill. Mr. Quill, what's going on?
Old films, Mr. Spencer. Classics, you might say. I've saved them for years, bits of them. We used to run them like this in the old days, but not for years we haven't done it. Now it seems like old times once more.
At number 3 platform is the train for Slagford, Muddleford and Northampton.
Sheriff and his posse.
Nothing to worry about, Mr. Spencer. The film broke. I'll have it fixed in a minute.
This here, the police apart.
Well, can't you say something to him, sir? The old man always did.
What do I say?
Tell him to shut up and wait for it. We're doing our best.
The following year, he played the evil henchman to a villainous Terry Thomas in Tom Thumb, starring Russ Tamblyn.
Imagine yourself as the littlest guy in the world. Just think of the adventures you'd have. You could sit in the palm of a hand, and everyone would know your name. Tom Thumb. But for a guy your size, there are plenty of dangers, too. Like the horrible villains who can't wait to get their hands on you.
What should I do now?
Tie the rope to one of those bags.
Which one?
The biggest one.
Imagine what it's like to be so small you can fit in the ear of a horse. Imagine what it's like to fly way up in the sky on a toy balloon. Imagine anything. It can all come true. A milestone in movie imagination. Tom Thumb.
Sellers' comedic talent was obvious. He showcased this in 1959, playing 3 different roles in The Mouse That Roared.
Fine thing. The United States and the Grand Duchy of Fenwick are at war, and it takes the FBI to find out about it.
The Mouse That Roared, the film that united the nations in roars of laughter. Starring an hilarious new personality, Peter Sellers, in 3 gloriously funny roles. Peter Sellers as the noble statesman.
There isn't a more profitable undertaking for any country than to declare war on the United States and to be defeated.
Peter Sellers as the fearless leader.
Men of Fenwick, when you hear the name of Grand Fenwick, do your hearts swell with pride?
Yes!
And if your country calls, will you rush to enlist?
No!
Oh. Peter Sellers as the Grand Duchess.
Do give my love to your president, will you? And Mrs. Coolidge, too.
See this man of many parts and the woman in his life who opens her arms to this lovesick, seasick man of war.
You can turn around right now and kiss me if you want to.
Really?
Really?
Oh.
Meanwhile, back in Grand Fenwick, the happy citizens prepare to welcome the victorious American Army. But little do they know the tragic truth.
Well, Your Grace, I know it'll come as a surprise, a pleasant one, I hope, but we sort of won.
Sort of what? We guarantee that this is the funniest motion picture ever to come out of the Duchy of Grand Fenwick. You read about the big splash it made in the Saturday Evening Post. Here's what some of the world's keenest and most objective minds have said about The Mouse That Roared.
'Peter showed his comedic diversity again in 1962, playing opposite Sue Lyon and Shelley Winters in Lolita.
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 How did they ever make a movie of Lolita?
How did they ever...
A movie of...
How did they ever...
How did they make a movie of Lolita?
Make a movie, a movie,
...1964 was a huge year for Peter Sellers. His worldwide popularity and critical acclaim had landed him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for his outstanding performance in Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Attack!
Russia.
Oh.
Base.
10 females to each male.
Coca-Cola machine.
shorts.
Where's the bathroom?
Buck, should I get it?
On the hotline.
Dr. Strangelove.
Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and...
Love the bomb. A moving picture.
I shouldn't tell you this, ma'am, Drake, but you're a good officer and you have a right to know. It looks like we're in a shooting war.
Oh, hell. All the Russians have orbs.
Well, boys, I reckon this is it. Nuclear combat toe-to-toe with the Ruskies.
I don't like the look of this, Fred. All right, tell you what you better do, old buddy.
I was under the impression that I was the only one in authority to order the use of nuclear weapons.
That's right, sir. You are the only person authorized to do so. And although I hate to judge before all the facts are in, it's beginning to look like General Ripper exceeded his authority.
Missile still deflecting. Range 1 mile.
Start lever to cut off. Cut off. Station power.
Has that plane really got a chance of getting through?
Well, sir, if the pilot's good, see? I mean, if he's really sharp, he can barrel that baby in so low. I mean, you ought to see it sometime. It's a sight. A big plane like a 52. Vroom! It's jet exhaust, frying chickens in the barnyard.
Dr. Strangelove.
Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and...
Love the bomb. A moving picture.
Peter also starred as Inspector Clouseau that same year in Blake Edwards' comedy smash, A Shot in the Dark.
I helped the brilliant Inspector Clouseau solve the murders. Here he is disguised as Peter Sellers.
I gathered the facts, examined the clues, and before you know it, the case is solved.
El Casama is the #1 sex bot. Suspect.
This lovely perfume you're wearing. Now, where were we?
While he looks for the guilty party, I look for the guilty bullet. There's a group of suspects now. Okay, Slug, where were you on the night of January 18?
Let's say on January day.
Oh, I'm dealing with a blank cartridge.
I'm getting it. It's coming.
Well, I exploded his alibi. Let's see if the inspector can explode George Sanders' alibi.
And I submit, Inspector Ballon, that you arrived home, found Miguel with Maria Gambrelli, and killed him in a writ of fellas jage.
Here's a suspect that's really loaded.
Hi, Palsy. How's about a little slug, huh?
You're shot.
What do you mean, shot? I'm only half shot. See what I mean?
Solving a crime of passion in Paris can be a very dangerous occupation. He gets to the bottom of things fast. Finding a murderer is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Looks like the inspector and I have got our work cut out for us. A nudist camp. Well, there's the inspector in a new disguise. The inspector spares no pains to break down her alibi, even to using the French equivalent of the 3rd degree.
Oh, this is too much for a simple prison.
One of you is a murderer.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Inspector, come to the point.
Don't tangle words with me.
Ow! You clumsy idiot!
No.
Confidentially, the murderer is... If you want to know who the murderer is, you'll have to come and see the picture.
He played the eccentric pianist Henry Orient in The World of Henry Orient, also released in 1964.
A world of exciting acclaim. And this was the world of Henry Orient.
I have dreamed of this moment ever since I first heard your voice on the telephone.
A world of passionate embraces. And this is the world of two junior-sized misses. A world of enchanted moments. A delightful world of new discoveries.
And you really necked? Sure, everybody did, haven't you yet? Honestly, the way they watch you around, you'd think we were criminals or something.
See what happens when these two very different worlds collide in the world of Henry Orient.
You can tell the whole world if you want to that I, Valerie Campbell Boyd, love and adore the great and beautiful and wonderful Henry Orient.
And from this minute on, we will devote our whole lives, both day and night, except during homework.
You'll love every hilarious minute of it as two junior-sized misses invade the world of a king-sized nut.
Sellers turned in another classic performance in 1968, this time playing a bumbling Indian actor in Blake Edwards's The Party.
The party where everyone comes and anything goes.
There goes the door, man.
You're my sugar. I'm not your sugar.
You've heard about those Hollywood parties. Now, Peter Sellers invites you to the party. If you've ever been to a Wilder party, you're under arrest.
In 1975, Peter Sellers tackled no less than 6 different comedy roles in Undercover's Hero.
Peter Sellers as an old soldier, a goofy Gestapo officer.
We of the Gestapo are not as stupid as we look. Do I make myself clear?
A dapper dignitary who loses his dignity. A Japanese general.
You do well for beginner.
A sensationally sour crowd. And a bumbling British commando.
Subject.
C. Peter Sellers.
Yes.
Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers. And Peter Sellers.
Shorts, you idiot!
In Undercover's Hero. Rated R.
Continuing with the success of his Inspector Clouseau character, Sellers brought to life another radiant performance in the 1976 comedy classic, The Pink Panther Strikes Again.
I expect you're all wondering why I asked you here.
The fate of the world is in his hands. But Clouseau is no ordinary man.
That is why I have always failed where others have succeeded.
Never before have his senses been sharper. His reflexes quicker. His tactics trickier. His disguises so ingenious.
I am André Beteur, mustard salesman from Dijon.
It's Dr. Schatz from the village.
Never before has his mind been more brilliant.
But that's a priceless Steinway.
Not anymore.
The popularity of the Pink Panther series led to yet another visit from Inspector Clouseau, this time in The Revenge of the Pink Panther.
Peter Sellers is the late, great Chief Inspector Clouseau.
The great Inspector Clouseau will not be bothering us anymore.
He's going to solve his own murder, even if it kills him. Master of disguise.
Al Pacino. It's only an old salty Swedish seed dog.
Hello, Inspector. Sleuth extraordinaire.
Who were those two men who tried to kill you last night?
Killers.
Clouseau is back on the case. And revenge has never tasted this sweet. Look this strange. Or been this funny. Never. Until the revenge of the Pink Panther.
Until we meet again and the case is solved.
In 1979, Peter Sellers was again nominated for an Academy Award, this time for his performance in Being There. Sellers died of a heart attack the following year. He was only 54. But his legacy continues today with his dozens of classic comedic characterizations captured on film. Peter Sellers remains one cinematic superstar whom Hollywood will always remember.